We would like to talk about international trade. We have four topics to cover with, which is first, advantage and disadvantage of international trade. Second, protectionism, argument and tools. Third, balance of payment, aka BOP, structure and calculative of BOP. And finally, fourth, the effects of BOP deficit and measure to reduce BOP deficit. International trade refers to exchange of goods and services between two people or countries. It also refers to exchange of goods and services between the boundaries of a country.
Going to explain the advantages of international trade. There are 5 advantages. Firstly, to obtain the benefit from specialization, which consists of 2 types of specialization that are absolute advantage and comparative advantage. This to wider consumer choice where the variety of goods to choose may enjoy different types of goods. After that, to expand the market and may benefit from economies of scales, also another advantage of international trade, where there is a decreasing cost in the global market. Fourthly, increases the national income through the specialization that helps to increase the volume of export and raises the GDP. And lastly, exchanging knowledge and technological investment by sharing of knowledge, information, and technology among countries. I have explained the advantages of international trade. Right now, I will explain the disadvantages of international trade. There are 3 of them. First of all, there is a depletion of countries' reserves. When the continuous export of raw materials such as oil may deplete a nation's reserve of the deposits in the long run. If this happens, it will affect the nation's growth in the long run. Secondly, economics and political dependence. Economic specialization may lead to a nation having to depend on other countries for other goods. This makes the country vulnerable to external forces. A fluctuation in price employment may affect economic growth. Last but not least, the transportation costs. If the transportation costs are too high, then international trade will not be a profitable venture for some countries.
Protectionism. Even though international trade brings greater increase to the world output, most countries have trade restrictions to protect their local product from foreign competition. The first one is national security argument. This argument is based on the assumption that a country should be self-sufficient in certain industries, such as in the manufacture of aircraft and weapons and in the production of petroleum. Second argument is infant industry argument. This argument is based on the assumption that infant or new industries should be protected from established foreign competitors until they have developed sufficient efficiency and economies of scale for them to compete on an equal basis. Argument is anti-dumping argument. Dumping refers to the sale of goods abroad at a lower price or below the price charged in the local market. Dumping is an unfair trade practice that disadvantages domestic producers of the substitute goods. For example, if Thailand sells its rice in Malaysia at a lower price than Malaysia, this is referred to as dumping rice in Malaysia. This will worsen the situation for rice producers in Malaysia. Lastly is the domestic employment argument. If domestic producers cannot compete with foreign competitors, then many domestic producers will leave the industry. This will lead to unemployment. To avoid high domestic unemployment, the country needs to practice protectionism by reducing imports and increasing exports. There are 4 tools of protectionism, which are tariff, quotas, embargoes, and import license.
Balance of payment is a statement of a systematic records of all economic transactions between one country and the rest of the world in a given period of time. BOP also includes both visible and invisible goods, and also records both debit and credits. Debit side records any transaction that supplies the country's currency in the foreign exchange market, while credits records any transactions creates demand for the country's currency in the foreign exchange market. There are 3 major components in structure of BOP. So the first one is current account. There are four formulas. For the first one is trade balance. Trade balance is the difference between export goods and import goods. If the positive value shows in the records, then it means surplus, or in other words, export is more than import. And the second one is service balance. Service balance also include transportation, travel, communication, government service, freight and insurance, education, banking and other services. Net income is the total of compensation of employees and income from investment. And lastly is current transfer, or in other words, transfer payment. Current transfer includes gift, military aid and financial by the government, private individual or organization to foreign countries. So the second major component is capital account. Capital account records the payment flows on purchases of foreign asset by Malaysian or Malaysian asset by foreigners. So the example of capital account is purchase of bonds, extending loans, buying government securities and other investment. The third major component is error and omissions. Error and omission is a balancing item which the credit and debit must be equal. So the BOP accountant uses error and omissions to balance the account. And the fourth one is official reserve account. Official reserve account consists of government and foreign currency reserve as well as government reserve with IMF and SDR. Lastly is overall balance. Overall balance is the total of current account, capital account, and errors and omission. If the total of overall balance shows the positive sign, then there is a surplus. In other words, cash outflow is less than cash inflow. So if it's a negative sign, then it is in another way. So the last part of BOP is reserve asset. If the overall balance shows the negative value, then the reserve asset is positive.
Deficit means a greater payment than received due to a large outflow of money paid to other countries. There are few effects of balance of payment deficit. Reduces economic growth. In other words, reduces aggregate demand and will result to a less multiplier effect on the real output and GDP will fall. Reduce the competitiveness of domestic price because once export is less compared to import, demand for ringgit Malaysia is less compared to foreign currency, force the ringgit Malaysia to depreciate. Third, reduce reserve. This is due to larger export demand for foreign reserve. Account has to be debited. Furthermore, depreciating the exchange rate when import is larger than export. Therefore, less demand for ringgit Malaysia will depreciate its value. Increases debtedness, which means larger volume of loans might have been taken to develop the economy. This will lead to deficit in the capital and financial market.
One of the measures to reduce balance of payments, or also known as BOP deficit, is to export promotion, which means to increase value of export of the country. The export value can be increased through strengthening competitiveness. The government can encourage exports by giving away subsidies or granting tax holidays. The government can promote local products in the international market. Only discouraging import. The government can restrict imports of consumer products and substitute them with locally manufactured products. This can be achieved by imposing high tariff rates or quotas for imported products. When such measures are charged on imported products, their import price will increase and quantity demand will decrease. Inflation may increase prices of locally manufactured goods. This will make imported goods more attractive. In order to solve deficit imbalance of payments, government should control inflation problem by imposing tight monetary policy or tight fiscal policy. Not least is by using government reserve. Government reserve in the form of gold or foreign currencies are used to balance deficit in the balance of payments. However,
However, this measure can be used for only a short